On the other hand, there have been instances where products had to be recalled because of an error in the documentation, or in some rare instance, because of a mistake that a surgeon did. And that gets real expensive if you have to recall medical devices, especially implants, like a replacement knee. How do you deal with that? So the risk is often reputational, and monetary, and less. It's really less safety. That would have to be an egregious error for that to raise it. And we deal with the financial risk, of course, contractually. Um, like every translation company. Um, and the reputational risk, that's real for us as well as our clients. If you have even it has nothing to do with translation, but Johnson and Johnson with their Tylenol scare 15, 20 years ago, that does real damage. And if that involved translation, that relationship would be over. You can kiss that goodbye. Um, so we spend a good amount of time assessing risk, especially at the beginning of a client relationship, where we really try to understand how do we think about this for this client. Um, and then how do we build processes around it to minimize the risks? Um, to the extent possible, also share the risk with the client. They review the documentation, the translations, they sign off on it. Um, so, but at the end of the day, it's again, if you've got one big translation mistake, that relationship is over.
Yeah, that's right. It becomes very costly, right, Andre? It becomes
That's
costly
right.
for both the provider and
Exactly.
and the manufacturer or the incumbent. Now, one of the because you have a you're very cognizant of the risk, and that, by the way, that risk and the way you described it, there's a lot of obligations in manufacturer. It doesn't matter what sector you're in for translation. Even though, let's example, for instance, if you're a car manufacturer on the assembly line, there are in the United States right now, you cannot let that car off the assembly line unless there's a manual. Now it's all digital
Right.
nowadays
Sure.
inside of the car that is translated. And a lot of times they will hold the traffic until the manual is inside of the car. So,
Yep. Yep.
it's various places, but I guess when you're talking about people's lives impacted, specifically in the medical sector, it becomes a little bit more scrutinized. Now, one of the things is when we talk about the medical sector is specifically for translation is quality control. Walk me through your quality control chain, and where do most provider perhaps, I mean, you got to not ignore, you got to probably keep it in the back of the radar. Here is the price, which is, a lot of competition out there.